morning, 8th grade remote learners. I say morning, it's morning for me. It could be afternoon, nighttime, evening, 3 in the morning for you. I don't know. But whenever you can get this done, that'd be great. Today, as you can see, we're taking Chapter 1, Section 2 notes. I'm here in my prep. It's about 8:20 in the morning here. I'm going to take my mask off so you can understand me better. You can see it's obviously matted down my beard, so I'm sorry for that. So you can hear and see me talking better, hopefully. Like I said, if I weren't here alone in my room, I wouldn't remove the mask. But I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and I will ask a question at the end that you need to comment. That's just a way for me to make sure that you are listening all the way through. In the beginning, these will not be as long as the 40 minutes you're getting in class, but hopefully as I go on and I get better, these will become more of a regular class period length. Even if it's not, you still need to copy the notes down, which is going to take you more than the 10, 15, 20 minutes that this video is going to be. So make sure you copy these notes down. We had a discussion last week in class here about your notebooks, but if you don't remember from last year, LOL, legible, organized, labeled, your notes need to be able to be read by me, which doesn't take much, as you all know. And as you all see when I send stuff home with you, my handwriting is terrible to begin with. So making it good enough so I can read it is not a very high bar to clear. Organized, you should already have Chapter 1, Section 1 notes down. These should come starting at the top of a new page. You should have Chapter 1, Section 2, that's the second L, labeled, legible, organized, and labeled. Don't mix your notes around in different notebooks. You should have one social studies notebook you should keep throughout the entire 9 weeks. Before fall break, I will have you or your parents or guardians turn these in on the material collection days. And so there's no need for you to turn these in on a weekly basis. It's just an every 9 weeks basis. Anything else we send home could be week to week, or you can just send a picture to me, whatever is best. And that's something I'd like to get out of the way early on in social studies, is that it doesn't matter to me how you turn things in. I just want them turned in. If you want to make your own copy and share it with me on Google Docs, if you have somebody that you insist on doing it the old school way of bringing it up, that's fine. You can take a picture and send it to me as an email. It does not matter to me, as long as when I tell you to get something done, you get it done and you show me that you've gotten it done any way possible. This is a new situation for all of us. And so any way you can show to me that you've got your work done will be great. These questions that I've been sending home, and I'll send home another section tomorrow, they're not due. I don't collect these. We don't do homework. Those are all just to prepare you for the test. And so if you have questions, feel free to email me, message me on a reminder, whatever. But there's no need for you to make sure those are all turned in. If you want to send me questions or pictures to ask about clarifications for the test, that's great. But otherwise, those are not due at any specific time. Things that are due, I will let you know for sure. So here we go. When we left off on Section 1, we were talking about the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850. The North and the South are growing further apart. And obviously, spoiler alert, the end result of this is the Civil War. And part of the Compromise of 1850 was the Fugitive Slave Act, which is one of the craziest laws that's ever been passed in American history. A lot of people don't talk about it because they're embarrassed by it, because the Fugitive Slave Act said that all Americans, that includes people in the South and in the North, like in Illinois where we live, where slavery was already illegal, were required by law to chase down runaway slaves, which is nuts. There's no reason that, like, when I leave school today, and if somebody blows by me on the highway, I don't get to pull them over for speeding. That's not my job. Just like it's not anybody's job, if you're a blacksmith or a teacher or a doctor, to chase down runaway slaves in your free time. And in fact, the opposite was true. Many in the North were helping slaves escape, which is why the Southerners insisted this law was passed in the first place. And so Southerners passed this law because they wanted to make Northerners return their runaway slaves, but it really had the opposite effect. A lot of people in the North saw just how evil and just how bad slavery was, and just how much slaves in general were mistreated. And so this basically galvanized or strengthened or really got Northerners behind the anti-slavery movement, that, hey, we need this to stop. And this really got the snowball rolling down the hill towards the Civil War and towards the idea that emancipation, which means freeing of all the slaves, is a must for America. And really, it was way too late. Most of the rest of the world had already realized that slavery was immoral and unethical and evil decades, if not centuries, before America had. So we were really behind the times. But this really pushed Americans towards that realization that, hey, this is something that is going to tear us apart and cause a war if we don't get rid of it. Now, of course, we had to fight a war. That's chapter 2. Spoiler alert, we had to fight a war to get rid of it anyway. And so they tried to capture those that had been gone for years. And due to American law at that time, if you were African American or a person of color, you were not considered to be a citizen. And so in a lot of cases, people would come up north from the South, plantation owners, and they would accuse freedmen of being slaves. And there was no really legal action that people who were people of color could take to say, no, I'm not a slave. I don't know you. I've been a Northerner and I've been free my whole life. And so you had a lot of people that were basically literally kidnapped into slavery because of the Fugitive Slave Act, because back then people were incredibly racist in the North and in the South, and there was no situation in which a person of color could take a white person to court and win back then, because laws didn't even allow for that to happen, for a person of color to bring a court case, because they were not considered citizens at that time, which again is something that's embarrassing for Americans to have on our history books and our Constitution and our books of laws, but it was the case at that time, and to ignore that is also doesn't do us any good. And we could be thankful, we can be embarrassed that it happened, but we can also be thankful that things have changed and now that's not the case anymore. And both of those are part of being an American and learning from your history, which is the whole point anyway. I know as I go through these slides, you're not going to be able to keep up, which is why I will attach these slides also, so you can go at your own pace. I do ask that you watch the video. Like I said, hopefully as we go on, I will be able to do this. It's in this home live in class, but I don't have that technology or the scheduling capabilities right now. So the Underground Railroad was neither underground nor a railroad. You can't hide a train very well. So it wasn't an actual railroad, but it was a system with stations, as they called them, that helped slaves escape to the north, and specifically Canada, so they can gain their freedom. And so they would travel during the night and they would hide in people's crawl spaces, attics or cellars or pantries or whatever. And they would get to the north, like Illinois and Ohio, Michigan, or whatever. And then we would help those runaway slaves and their families get up to Canada, where the Fugitive Slave Act did not apply. And so there was much less of a chance of those people being captured and returned. And so, again, this is just another example of Northerners defying the Fugitive Slave Act and the Compromise of 1850 and saying, no, this is not who we are. This is not something we believe in. We don't like slavery. So the KansasNebraska Act, and this is really one of the big acts that passed, that pushed, Americans closer to Civil War. If you remember back from the notes that you took on, I guess, Thursday, or you should have taken on Thursday. I know some of you didn't get your stuff till Friday, so you might be trying to catch up now, and that's fine. The Missouri Compromise drew a line across the western part of the United States at 36 degrees, 30 minutes north latitude, and said basically anything north of that line will not be allowed to have slavery. And so what this law comes in only 20 years later, it says, hey, let's just let each state decide on their own, which pretty much defeats the whole purpose of passing the law to begin with. And so this goes against the law that they just passed. And so Kansas and Nebraska are both north of that line. They both want to become states. And so Stephen A. Douglas, who was an Illinoisan, by the way, decided let's let popular sovereignty decide. Popular sovereignty means the ability to decide on your own. Popular means, in other words, we're going to have a popular vote. We're going to let the people decide what they want. And so what you end up with is you had something like 6,000 voters in Kansas where there were only a couple thousand eligible voters, and that's not how things work. If we had an election for 8th grade class president and the votes came in that the winner got 650 votes, you would be like, something's weird, because we've only got 45 or 50 8th graders. And so that's exactly what happened in Kansas. People from Missouri, or as my grandma says, Missouri, poured into Kansas and Nebraska, Kansas specifically, and basically formed roving gangs that attacked each other. And basically, two governments were set up in conflict with each other, one pro-slavery government and one anti-slavery government in Kansas. And so that's not how America works. You have a state government in Illinois, we have ours in Springfield, and you have your national government, but you can't have two conflicting state governments in the same state. And so, again, like it says there were about 1,500 eligible voters and about 6,000 ballots were cast, and that's not a good sign if you're trying to have fair elections. And so this is the first instance in which you had conflict. And some people would call this the beginning of the Civil War. Most historians say the attack at Fort Sumter started the Civil War, but some people trace it back even further to what they call Bloody Kansas, which I believe is the next slide's title, because basically you had armed conflicts, bloody clashes, and people being shot, killed, and stabbed in Kansas already over this argument over whether slavery is legal, should be legal, will be legal, or is moral and ethical, which, of course, in 2020, we know it's not. And most people knew back then it wasn't also, but you still have people that were that were incredibly racist or were incredibly lazy or some combination thereof and wanted their free labor. And they felt that their economy would crumble if they were not allowed to force people into slavery, which, sitting here, that's good. That's what you deserve. But back then, people didn't see it that way. So with both sides basically forming gangs and stockpiling weapons, you have violence that's inevitable. That's an underlined word here. As you can see, that means unavoidable. In other words, there's no possible way it's not going to happen. And so in May of 1856, 800 slavery supporters attacked Lawrence, Kansas, which had basically become the anti-slavery capital of Kansas. And so then the anti-slavery forces led by John Brown retaliated. Retaliate means to fight back. And so John Brown that says a fervent abolitionist. Fervent means he really believes that every fiber of his being. He believed that slavery was wrong. And John Brown became one of my heroes because he and his people were attacked, and he realized that passing laws and debating things in Congress and talkie was not going to end this. And the only way slavery was going to be ended when the Civil War proved this to be correct was through action. And so once he was attacked, he fought back. And so you had basically a civil war of sorts break out in Kansas as a preview, a precursor, whatever you want to call it, as the actual Civil War. And in fact, you even had violence in the Senate. You had a guy named Preston. Charles Sumner gave a speech basically comparing the state of South Carolina to a prostitute, which was back then, that's fighting words. And so Preston Brooks showed up in Senate one day, and as Charles Sumner was writing his notes, literally beat him with a cane until he was almost in the Senate. And so whenever you have people in your life that say, well, I don't agree with this politician or that politician, but they should at least be civil. Back in the day, people used to at least be able to get along and disagree with their words. That's not the case. You had a dude that beat another dude nearly to death, almost literally nearly to death. This guy was blind for like 3 years because he was beaten with a cane, a big, heavy, like the size of a baseball bat cane on the Senate floor in the Senate. And then whenever other senators tried to step in to try to stop it, one of the other guys that was on Preston Brooks' side, his cousin actually, who Charles Sumner had insulted originally, pulled out a gun on the Senate floor. It was like, they're just having a disagreement. And they're like, well, no, they're not having a disagreement. This one guy's wailing on this other with a cane. That's not cool. But he was like, well, I got a gun, so you and I are really going to break up the fight. So we're at 14 minutes now. Usually these will be a little bit longer, hopefully anyway, but this is my first time trying. I don't know if the school internet's going to allow us to upload these to YouTube or whatever, so this is just a trial run. But I need you to watch these videos. I do need you to take these notes down, like I said. You are not going to be able to keep up with how fast I went today. That's okay. I will attach these so you can go at your own pace to write these down, which I know will take longer than YouTube videos. So this will count as your social studies class for the day. Tomorrow you will do reading, and I will send the sheet home. So there'll be no video, and you'll see my face again, for better or worse, my matted down by the mask beard or whatever, on Wednesday. So like I said at the beginning, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer in the comments when I send this out in Google Classroom. This counts as your attendance for the day. All you need to do, tell me what your favorite color is. Don't have a favorite color? But I don't have a favorite color. Don't have a favorite color. Don't want to write all that? Make one up. Just put blue. But that just tells me that you've watched to the end, okay? All right. Have a great, whatever this is, Monday, and I will see you again. I'll talk to you again tomorrow, but I will see you again, or you'll see me, I guess, again on Wednesday. Have a great day, and see you later.